The observation the research ship Valari Prime floated quietly in deep space. It was one of the most advanced medical science vessels in the Valari Alliance. Inside the silver halls of the ship, life went on like normal. But for Dr. Ellen, today was not just another day. Dr. Ellen was a Valari, tall, pale blue skin, 4 fingers on each hand, and large dark eyes that missed nothing. Like all Valari, she believed in logic, science, and order. Emotions were considered distractions. But now, standing in her medical bay, Dr. Ellen felt something she rarely did: confusion. She looked at the scan in front of her. It showed the body of a human male, Daniel Reese, a member of the Earth delegation, and the only human currently aboard the ship. Daniel had come in for a routine post-quarantine health check. It was a standard scan, done after any planetary landing. Everything seemed normal, until she reached the lower abdominal region. There was a sudden swelling, a bulge in the tissues near the pelvic area, growing rapidly during the scan. The area also showed increased heat, fast blood flow, and a spike in neural activity. To Dr. Ellen, it looked like a serious infection. Maybe an alien parasite had entered his body. Or maybe something was mutating inside him. She tapped on the scan and zoomed in. Inflammation detected, she whispered to herself. Rapid expansion, elevated vascular pressure, body temperature rising. This was not normal. This could be dangerous, not only for Daniel, but for the entire crew. If it was contagious, they were all at risk. She pressed a button on her panel. Dr. Ellen to crewman Daniel Reese. Report to medical bay immediately. Daniel walked into the medbay 5 minutes later, wearing his usual half-smile and a black Earth Federation jacket. You called Doc? He asked, casually. Dr. Ellen didn't smile back. She was standing stiffly, arms behind her back, eyes serious. Mr. Reese, she said, your medical scan has revealed an emergency. Daniel blinked. Emergency? I feel fine. You may feel fine, Ellen said, but your scan shows extreme tissue inflammation in your lower region. We believe it could be parasitic in nature or the early stage of internal rupture. Daniel stared at her for a moment. Then he laughed. Wait, are you talking about ... down there? He pointed vaguely toward his waist. Yes, Ellen said, without expression. I am referring to the sudden expansion of organic mass near your reproductive organs. Daniel chuckled, clearly amused. That's not an infection, Doc. That's just ... well, it's normal. Dr. Ellen narrowed her eyes. Explain. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, looking slightly embarrassed now. It's a ... biological reaction. You know, humans sometimes experience arousal. It happens when the brain is stimulated or emotions kick in. Could be anything. Sometimes it just ... happens. Dr. Ellen tilted her head. You are saying this reaction is not caused by disease? Nope, Daniel said. It's just a part of being human. But it is uncontrolled, she said. Unexpected. It appears during medical scans. That seems ... illogical. Daniel grinned. Welcome to humanity. Logic doesn't always apply. Dr. Ellen asked him to lie down again. She wanted to do a second scan. Daniel obeyed, still smiling. As the scan began, Ellen watched the monitors carefully. The swelling had reduced now, but the biological data still didn't make sense to her. Your species is strange, she said softly. Daniel looked up at her. You mean interesting? She ignored the comment and focused on the scan. Does this arousal serve a purpose? Daniel shrugged. Sure, it's related to reproduction. But it's not always about that. Sometimes it's just a feeling, attraction, emotion, stuff like that. Dr. Ellen frowned. Valari reproduction is clean, efficient. We exchange enzyme packages through cellular pods. No physical swelling. No emotional triggers. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Sounds romantic. She didn't catch the sarcasm. It is scientifically perfect, Daniel chuckled again. Yeah, well, humans are messy. Get used to it. When the scan ended, Ellen stood silently for a moment, staring at the data. Her mind was racing, full of questions and uncertainties. This human reaction, physical, emotional, unpredictable, was unlike anything she had seen. She had studied dozens of species, but none had this kind of reaction. It challenged her understanding of biology. It challenged her idea of order. And worse, it made her curious. Daniel, she said finally, I will need to study this further. I request permission to monitor future episodes. Daniel sat up and laughed. You're serious? Very much so, she said. He nodded, still amused. All right, Doc. But only if I get to wear pants next time. Later that night, Dr. Ellen sat in her quarters, reviewing the scan once again. The swelling, the heat, the strange hormonal patterns. She didn't understand it, not fully. But she knew one thing. This was more than a medical mystery. This was the beginning of something different. Something human. Medical misunderstanding. The next day, Dr. Ellen was already waiting in the medical bay before Daniel arrived. She had not slept much. The previous scan kept playing in her mind. She had read more about human biology from the ship's medical database, but the information was limited. Most of it was written by other humans, and their explanations were strange, full of slang, jokes, and metaphors. She needed answers, real answers. And the only person who could give them was Daniel Reese. At exactly 0900 hours, Daniel walked in. Again, sipping a cup of dark coffee. Morning, Doc, he said cheerfully. Back for round 2? Dr. Ellen stood with her tablet in hand, eyes sharp and serious. Yes. Today, I will run extended tests on your lower body region during various emotional states. Daniel paused mid-sip. That sounds awkward. She tilted her head. Do you refuse? He gave a small smile. Nah, just sounds like the weirdest thing I've ever agreed to. Dr. Ellen guided him to the examination table. This time, she had prepared a more detailed setup. Multiple sensors were attached to his chest, arms, and lower abdomen. A circular light moved across his body, scanning everything from skin temperature to heart rate. She began asking questions, voice steady and professional. How often do you experience this swelling? Daniel raised an eyebrow. You mean? Yes, the swelling observed in yesterday's scan. He coughed, slightly embarrassed. Well, it depends. Sometimes daily, sometimes more. Depends on mood, time, even dreams. Dr. Ellen typed quickly on her tablet. You are not in control of it? Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. It's like sneezing or laughing. It just happens. Dr. Ellen looked confused. But sneezing serves a purpose. This swelling seems biologically wasteful. Daniel laughed. You'd be surprised how useful it can be. She blinked. Please explain. Daniel stared at the ceiling. All right, here goes. In humans, that reaction is part of reproduction, but it's also emotional. Sometimes it's about attraction, sometimes excitement, or even just imagination. Dr. Ellen frowned. Imagination? You mean your mind can cause it? Yep. She walked around him, scanning from different angles. So it is a mix of physical and mental causes. Exactly, Daniel said. Welcome to the world of humans, confusing but never boring. While the test continued, a junior Velari assistant named Tova entered the room. She was young, curious, and still learning about human biology. She looked at the screen, her eyes widening. Dr. Ellen, is that swelling dangerous? Ellen kept her tone calm. We are studying it. It seems to be a natural reaction in humans. Tova tilted her head. But it looks unstable. Should we alert command? No, Ellen said firmly. This is not a medical emergency." But Tova had already stepped out. She wasn't convinced. Within an hour, rumors began spreading across the ship. Human male infected with alien parasite. Strange condition spreading through the human body. Emergency medical lockdown might happen. By midday, several crew members were whispering in the halls. Some avoided Daniel completely. Others looked at him like he was a ticking bomb. Daniel noticed it immediately. "Why is everyone looking at me like I'm gonna explode?" he asked, leaning against a wall in the medbay. Ellen looked up from her notes. "It seems information has been misunderstood." "You mean someone thinks my biology is contagious?" Ellen nodded. "Correct," Daniel sighed. "Great. I become a science project and a walking rumor in one day." Later that evening, a small meeting was called by the ship's first officer, Commander Threx, another Valari known for his strict rules and dry personality. Daniel, Dr. Ellen, and a few senior crew members sat around the long table. "We've received reports of a possible infection," Commander Threx said. "Do we need to initiate isolation procedures?" Dr. Ellen stood. "No, the condition is not harmful. It is a natural part of human biology." Threx narrowed his eyes. "Are you certain?" "Yes," she said firmly. "I have conducted full scans. The swelling is not viral, not alien, and not dangerous." Daniel raised a hand. "For the record, I'm perfectly healthy. Just human." Some Valari still looked uncomfortable. Commander Threx tapped the table. "Very well. But limit human-alien physical interactions until further notice." Daniel frowned. "Seriously? I'm not a threat." "We are acting with caution," Threx said. "Not fear." Daniel stood slowly. "You might not fear me, Commander, but you definitely don't understand me." After the meeting, Daniel returned to the medbay, quieter than usual. Ellen noticed his mood had changed. "You are angry," she said. He nodded. "Not angry, just tired. This isn't the first time humans have been misunderstood." She looked at him. "I was also confused. At first, I thought something was wrong with you. And now?" he asked. "Now I believe humans have a unique way of expressing life," she said softly. "Through body, emotion, and imagination." Daniel looked surprised. "That's probably the nicest thing anyone said to me today." They both smiled, and for a moment, there was silence, not awkward, just peaceful. That night, Ellen added new notes to her private medical journal. "The human body does not follow the same rules as ours. Its responses are unpredictable, often emotional, but within that chaos, there is beauty. I must study it further. Not because I am ordered to, but because I wish to understand." Outside the window, the stars kept moving slowly through space, but inside Ellen's mind, something had begun to shift. She was no longer just curious about human biology. She was curious about the human behind it. Cultural confession. The next day, aboard Valari Prime began quietly, but tension still hung in the air. Most of the alien crew kept a polite distance from Daniel. Even though the rumors had been corrected, some Valari still felt uneasy around him. They didn't understand how a human body could act on emotion without warning or logic. It made them nervous. Daniel didn't say much. He kept to himself, eating alone in the mess hall and walking the quiet corridors with his hands in his pockets. The curiosity and amusement from earlier were now replaced with silence. Dr. Ellen noticed the change immediately. She called him to the medical bay again, but this time not for a test. She wanted to talk. When Daniel arrived, he looked tired. "I don't think I'm in the mood for another scan today." "Doc," he said, trying to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Ellen folded her hands in front of her. "No scan today. I only want to speak." Daniel blinked. "Oh, that's new." "Please sit," she said. Daniel sat down on the edge of the examination bed, while Ellen remained standing near the monitor. I have reviewed your biological reactions, your emotional responses, and human historical data, she began. But there is still something I do not understand. Only one thing? Daniel said with a half laugh. I must be getting better. Ellen ignored the joke. You said yesterday that the swelling is sometimes caused by imagination or feelings. Daniel nodded. Yeah, sometimes it's physical, sometimes mental, sometimes both. But how does that work? Ellen asked. Why does the body react to thoughts alone? Daniel looked at her, and for the first time, he saw something new in her, genuine curiosity, not just as a scientist, but as someone trying to understand his world. He leaned forward a little. All right, you really want to know? Yes. He thought for a moment, then spoke slowly. Okay, humans are wired to respond to connection, touch, sight, voice, even memory. Sometimes the body reacts when the mind feels something strong. Attraction, affection, even loneliness. Ellen's brow furrowed, but Vilari do not have such physical changes from emotions. Then maybe that's the real difference. Daniel said, we don't separate our minds from our bodies. What we feel becomes what we do. What we think can change how we breathe, how we move, even how our heart beats. Ellen tilted her head slightly. It sounds Nurse. It can be, Daniel admitted. But it also makes us human. There was a pause. Then Ellen said something Daniel didn't expect. I have never felt emotion in my body. Daniel blinked. Never? She shook her head. Our emotions are mental, like quiet winds passing through the mind. We control them, suppress them if needed. But your species, you allow them to shape you, Daniel smiled. Yeah, and sometimes we crash because of it. But we also create, build, love, and fight for what we believe in. Ellen watched him closely. How does it feel? She asked. To experience affection? Daniel looked down at his hands. It's hard to explain. It's like gravity pulling you towards someone. You want to be near them. You care what they feel. Their happiness becomes your happiness. Ellen nodded slowly, trying to process the idea. And this affection, it causes the swelling? Daniel laughed. Sometimes. Other times it's just biology being impatient. This made Ellen pause. Then, softly she asked, and do you feel this now, for anyone? Daniel looked up, surprised. Her voice was quieter than usual, not clinical, not cold. For the first time it had weight, emotion. He didn't answer immediately. Instead he asked, what about you, Ellen? Ever been curious about a human beyond just data? She looked away, but only for a moment. I did not plan to, she said. Honestly, but I find myself thinking about your species more than I should. Why? Because you are unpredictable. You react without clear reason. And yet, you survive. You make chaos work for you, Daniel smiled. That's the best compliment I've gotten all week. I do not give compliments, Ellen replied. He raised an eyebrow. Then I'll treasure that one. A soft alert beeped from the console. Ellen walked over to check it. It was just a systems update, nothing urgent. But Daniel stayed quiet. Watching her dot, she moved with such grace, so precise and focused. And yet, something had changed. Her shoulders were not as stiff, her voice not as flat. She was beginning to open just a little. When she turned back to face him, he was still watching her. Thank you, he said. For what? She asked. For trying to understand. Ellen gave a small nod. Thank you for being patient. Even when others were not. Another pause followed. This one was not awkward, just thoughtful. I should go, Daniel said finally, standing up. Ellen didn't stop him, but before he reached the door, she spoke again. Daniel, she said. He turned. If I asked more questions, personal ones, would you answer them? He smiled. If you're ready for real human honesty, I'll answer anything you want. She gave a slow, thoughtful nod. I think ... I am ready. That night, Ellen sat in her quarters again, the lights dimmed. She wasn't looking at medical data. She was looking at something new, a human book, filled with stories and poems about love, touch, connection, things she had never studied before. Her fingers hovered over her datapad, and she opened a new file. Title: Cultural Confession, a study of emotional biology in humans. But before she wrote a single word, she paused, staring at the blank screen, because for the first time in her life, Dr. Ellen wasn't just writing as a scientist. She was writing as someone who felt something strange, something new, something ... human. Curiosity and connection over the next few days. Something changed between Dr. Ellen and Daniel. They still met in the medbay, but the atmosphere wasn't cold and clinical anymore. It was warm, quiet, almost gentle. They didn't run tests every time. Sometimes they just talked about Earth, about the stars, about things Ellen had never thought were important before. Daniel brought her a chocolate bar once. "This is a human food," he said, unwrapping it. "Sweet, rich, not very healthy. But trust me, you'll like it." Ellen looked at the small piece of dark brown substance in her hand. It smelled strange, soft. She placed it in her mouth and waited. Her eyes widened. "This ... is pleasant," Daniel grinned. "Told you." After that, she began to request more human foods, just to study them, she said. But Daniel knew she liked the taste. Maybe even the feeling that came with sharing something small. It wasn't about chocolate. It was about connection. One evening, Ellen invited Daniel to her quarters. It was unusual. Valerie didn't invite guests into personal space. Their quarters were considered private, even sacred. But Daniel accepted the invite without hesitation. Her room was neat, clean, and softly lit. The walls glowed with calming blue light, and a strange, slow melody played from a speaker. Not music exactly, but something like a heartbeat mixed with wind. "What's that sound?" Daniel asked, sitting down on a low chair. "Valerie's sleep rhythm," Ellen replied. "It calms the mind." "Sounds like a peaceful ocean," he said. Ellen nodded. "I like oceans. I've only seen them in pictures, though." Daniel smiled. "One day, I'll take you to Earth. We'll walk barefoot on a real beach." She looked at him for a long moment. "Barefoot, isn't that unhygienic?" He laughed. "It's tradition. Part of the feeling." Ellen lowered herself into the seat across from him. She was quiet for a while, studying him. "Daniel," she said softly, "I've been having strange thoughts." He raised an eyebrow. "Strange how?" She looked down. Her voice, always so calm, now trembled slightly. "Thoughts about you, about our talks, about what it would feel like to touch your hand, to feel what humans feel." Daniel's heart beat faster. He didn't expect her to admit that so openly. "You're not alone," he said. "I've been thinking the same." She looked up. Her large black eyes showed something new, a spark. Not just curiosity, but emotion. "I want to understand," she whispered. "Not just with my mind, but with ... my body too." She reached forward slowly. Her hand, smooth and cool, touched his. The contact was light, almost unsure. Daniel didn't move. Her fingers explored his skin like she was studying a new planet. Every line, every warmth, every slight tremble. "It's warm," she said softly. "And ... alive." He smiled. "That's the human body. It always tells the truth." She closed her fingers gently around his. Something passed between them, silent, electric, real, not a scan, not data, just ... feeling. Suddenly, the door chimed. It was Tova, the young Valerie assistant. Ellen pulled her hand away quickly and stood. "Enter," she said, voice suddenly formal again. Tova stepped in, holding a report tablet. "Doctor, there's an urgent message from command. A delegation from Earth will be arriving in 2 days. They wish to tour the ship." Daniel sat up straighter. Earth delegation? That's news to me, Tova nodded. They want to inspect the health systems and check human integration. Apparently, there's been that concern. Ellen took the report and dismissed Tova. Once the door closed, Daniel spoke. Let me guess, they heard about the swelling incident? Possibly, Ellen said, and they may question my methods. Daniel frowned. Are you worried? Ellen hesitated. Yes, if they think I've lost objectivity, they may remove me from this study. Daniel stood. Because of me? Because of us, she said, looking at him. Valari science is built on control. If they see emotion in my work, they'll call it failure. He stepped closer to her. Then let me talk to them. I'll explain everything. That you've been professional. That I trust you. She shook her head. Human words may not be enough. Then let me show them that connection is not weakness, he said. It's progress. That night, Ellen stared at her reflection in the glass. Her face was still, but her mind was not. She touched her lips, then her chest, where her heart should be. If she were human. She didn't know what was happening to her. She was changing. Becoming something new. Not fully human, not fully Valari, something in between. She wasn't afraid. She was alive. The next day, preparations began for the Earth delegation's arrival. The crew cleaned every corner of the ship. Medical logs were updated. Test chambers were locked. And Dr. Ellen was asked to submit a full report, including her work with Daniel. She hesitated. The truth was in her files. The tests, the conversations, even the unexplained rise in emotional connection. It was all there. She could hide it, change the data. But something inside her refused. So she submitted the real report. No edits. No lies. As the Earthship approached in the distance, visible from the observation deck, Daniel stood beside her. You're not afraid anymore, are you? He asked. I am, she said. But not of them. I'm afraid of losing something. Precious. Daniel smiled. Then fight for it. She looked at him. I will. The arrival and the truth. The Earth delegation ship docked quietly with Valari. Prime the next morning. From the windows, the crew watched as the sleek white shuttle connected to the docking bay. It was a small team, just 4 people, but their arrival carried heavy pressure. They were not just visitors. They were here to judge. Captain Relos, the Valari ship commander, greeted the delegation first. Daniel and Dr. Ellen waited in the medical bay, preparing for inspection. The silence between them was tight, like a string stretched too far. They'll ask hard questions, Ellen said quietly. About our methods, about us. Daniel nodded. We give honest answers. That's all we can do. A few minutes later, the medbay doors slid open. 3 humans entered, along with 1 Valari representative from the Science Council. All of them wore formal uniforms and serious expressions. The leader of the group was a middle-aged human woman, with short black hair and sharp eyes. Her badge read, Commander Rachel Kessler, Human Affairs Liaison. She spoke first. Dr. Ellen, Mr. Daniel Reyes, we've reviewed your joint research logs. There are concerns. Ellen stood straight, calm, but focused. I submitted everything truthfully. My methods are consistent. My data is accurate. Commander Kessler nodded slowly, then turned to Daniel. And what about you, Mr. Reyes? You've been a subject of study, but your behavior suggests personal involvement with the doctor. Do you confirm this? Daniel didn't flinch. Yes. I confirm it. Kessler raised an eyebrow. You understand that personal connections between subject and researcher are considered unethical by Earth medical standards? I do, Daniel said. But I also understand that connection is the very thing you sent me here to explore. Isn't the mission about learning how different species can truly live together? There was a pause. The Valari representative, named Saro, spoke next. Dr. Ellen, do you admit your emotions may have influenced your analysis? Ellen didn't look away. Yes. Gasps were heard. Even Kessler seemed surprised by her honesty. But, Ellen added, that influence helped me understand the human condition more deeply than any test ever could. My goal was to study human biology, but I realized human biology cannot be separated from human emotion. Kessler narrowed her eyes. You are a scientist. Your job is to remain objective. I tried, Ellen said softly, until I realized that objectivity was making me blind. Daniel stepped forward. If you remove her from this program, he said firmly, you're not just ending a study, you're destroying progress. She's the first Valari to understand what it means to feel like we do. Sorrow looked disturbed. Valari do not need to feel like humans. Maybe not, Daniel said. But don't you want to understand? Isn't that why we're even out here in the stars? Kessler looked at both of them. So let me get this straight. You're saying your romantic relationship has helped the mission? Ellen hesitated. But then, she nodded. I believe it has. There was silence in the room. Heavy, sharp. Kessler turned to the Valari representative. I want to speak to the captain, alone. They all left the room except for Ellen and Daniel. Daniel exhaled slowly. Well, he said, that could have gone worse, or better. Ellen sat down. They will not approve. Daniel crouched next to her. You stood up for something real. No matter what they say, I'm proud of you. She looked at him, her expression softer than ever. I felt something when I spoke. It was like my chest was warm. My voice, shaky. Is that normal? Daniel smiled. It's called courage. 2 hours later, the entire ship received a message. A crew-wide assembly in the Central Forum. All personnel were expected to attend. When Ellen and Daniel arrived, the forum was packed. Humans and Valari stood side by side, all watching the small stage at the front. Commander Kessler stood there with Captain Relos and Counselor Sro. She began to speak. We came here to assess the cooperation between human and Valari science. What we found was something unexpected. The crowd murmured. We found a connection that broke old rules. A partnership that challenged the idea of pure logic. And a kind of emotional bond we didn't expect to see this soon in interspecies relations. She paused, looking directly at Ellen and Daniel. Some on Earth will not approve of this. Some will say it's dangerous, reckless, even shameful. But after reading the full reports and speaking with the crew, I've decided not to shut this program down. Gasps filled the room, but this time they were surprised and hopeful. In fact, Kessler continued, I believe what happened here may be the first step toward true emotional diplomacy, not just political or scientific alliances, but real personal ones. She looked at Ellen again. You were brave enough to feel. And you showed us that sometimes science is not just about answers, it's about understanding each other. She turned to the audience. Let this serve as a new chapter, not just for humans and Valari, but for all species trying to bridge the space between mind and heart. The crowd erupted into gentle applause. Ellen stood still. She looked overwhelmed. Her hands were shaking slightly. Daniel reached over and gently took her hand. The warmth returned. So did the courage. Later, as they walked through the corridor together, Ellen asked, What happens now? Daniel grinned. Now? We finish what we started, together. And after that? He looked at her with a soft smile. After that, we see where this crazy journey takes us. Ellen didn't smile much. But this time she did. Just a small one. But it was real. A new beginning. Weeks passed after the Earth delegation left. The ship, Valari Prime, returned to its usual routine, quiet halls, glowing lights, and peaceful research. But something had changed beneath the surface. A shift had begun. Not in the engines or control panels, but in the hearts of those aboard. For the first time, emotion was no longer hidden. It was being studied, accepted, and even welcomed Dot at the center of this quiet revolution were Dr. Ellen and Daniel. They continued their work together in the medbay. But now, the tests were not just about measuring muscle or temperature. They studied emotions, joy, curiosity, trust, the things that made humans complex. And now made Ellen curious in a new way. She didn't just want to understand. She wanted to feel. One morning, Ellen entered the medical bay early. Daniel was already there, reviewing reports on a screen. He looked up and smiled. "You're early," he said. "I had a dream," she replied. "I think that means something." Daniel sat up straight. "Wait, Valari can dream? It is not common," she said. "But I saw something, a beach, you and I walking along the sand. The water was warm, the sun was soft." Daniel smiled. "Sounds like Earth. I've never seen Earth," she said quietly. "But I want to." Daniel stood and crossed the room to her. "You will," he said. "I promise, when this mission ends, we'll go together. I'll show you everything. The oceans, the forests, the cities, even chocolate shops." Ellen tilted her head. "Is that a romantic offer?" "Only if you say yes." She reached out and took his hand. "Yes," she said simply. The months passed. Ellen's research was published on both Valari and Earth databases. It was called The Biological Bond: Emotional Cross-Species Integration Through Personal Contact. At first, the paper caused a storm. Scientists from both planets argued over it. Some called it too emotional. Others called it brilliant. But most agreed it was the beginning of something new. New research, new ideas, new partnerships. Ellen and Daniel were invited to speak at conferences, together. They stood side by side as they explained how emotion was not a weakness in science, but a key to deeper understanding. They were no longer just doctor and patient. They were partners. Then the mission ended. After 2 years, the Valari Prime completed its study of human physiology in space. The ship prepared to return home to the Valari system, while Daniel was given the option to return to Earth. Captain Relos offered Ellen a high position at the Valari Science Council. It was a great honor, but it meant staying on Valari and leading new research programs. Daniel also received an offer to join the Human Interstellar Diplomacy Unit, but that meant going back to Earth. 2 paths. 2 homes. 1 choice. They sat in the viewing deck the night before the final docking. The stars outside shimmered quietly, like tiny pieces of time floating in the dark. Ellen spoke first. "I'm afraid," she said. Daniel turned toward her. "Of what?" "That this will end. That we will go back to our worlds and forget how we felt here." Daniel took her hand gently. "I won't forget," he said. "Not ever, but we don't have to say goodbye." She looked at him, her eyes deep and calm. "We belong to different worlds, Daniel." "Not anymore," he said. "We belong to each other now. That's a third world, one we build ourselves." Ellen was silent. Then, slowly, she smiled. "A third world," she whispered. "I like that idea." The next day, as passengers disembarked, something unexpected happened. Daniel didn't board the Earth shuttle. And Ellen didn't enter the Valari return pod. Instead, they walked together into a new ship, one with both human and Valari markings. It was a joint vessel, a new research mission. Its goal: to travel across galaxies and explore emotional adaptation between species. They had both accepted new roles, not on Earth, not on Valari, but as part of a unified team, traveling together to discover what lay beyond science and emotion. Not just researchers now, ambassadors of connection. Months later, on a small green planet in a distant star system, Daniel and Ellen stood together on a real beach. The sand was soft beneath their feet. The ocean whispered gently against the shore. Above them, the sky was painted in soft purple clouds. Ellen was barefoot. She looked down at her toes in the sand and then up at Daniel. "You were right," she said. "It feels free, Daniel chuckled. Told you. Nothing beats a walk on the beach. They stood silently for a while, listening to the waves. Then Ellen spoke again. Do you think others will follow our path? Yes, Daniel said confidently. Someday, this won't be strange, it'll be normal. A doctor from one world and a patient from another falling in love. Ellen tilted her head. Do you think we're in love? Daniel grinned. You tell me, doctor. She leaned in and pressed her forehead against his. I think we are. And as the two of them stood on the edge of the sea, one human, one Valari, the stars above them burned a little brighter, not because of science, not because of data, but because something beautiful had begun. The end.